Apple, big European moment. Pat, are we going to sideload this app onto our phones or what?
Yeah, so let me do a little bit of a background on it. So the EC issued what was called the Digital Markets Act, hence DMA, that they say will ensure fair and open digital markets. And one of the premises of it is that there were these gatekeeper companies. Okay, you know, I'll call them monopolists for short. And by the way, it's not against the law to be a monopolist. It's against the law to use monopolistic power to decrease competition, or as we've seen, the theory of you could, sometimes 10 years in the future to it. But who's a gatekeeper? Strong economic position, big impact on internal market, very active in EU companies. That's one. Strong intermediation position, large user base to a large number of businesses. And third, an entrenched and durable position market that's stable over time. Boy, that sounds like Apple, and the App Store there. So, what this means, and we saw this with Meta, which I don't know, maybe we'll talk about in the next episode. They had to unlink different properties between WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. But essentially, they wanted Apple to be more open market with the App Store, meaning they wanted companies to be able to offer applications that where users didn't have to pay 30%, because Apple has a 100% monopoly position in that right now. The second thing of it was payment, have an alternative payment methodology here. And essentially, and there's a couple more, but essentially what that meant is that Apple, you will be able to sideload applications. You'll have third-party stores. Now, it's interesting. Apple is, you can just read in their press release how angry and bitter they are on this. And they're finding ways that I think some people would say is kind of slimy, right? Which is adding, side loading, like new commissions structures. You've got essentially you have to use a certain scale of bank if you want to put an app store in there. And on one side of it, I can see, okay, that keeps slimy companies from coming in there. But it looks like Apple, instead of kind of opening it up, it actually just put up a smaller wall. And I know here in the United States, they're talking about, even if you make a transaction, Dan, listen to this, on a Safari browser, you will get hit if you're a developer with this. Here's my final comment. People belly aching about any of these changes in the spirit of security, and I don't know, some people like censorship. We wouldn't be here if Apple hadn't been so greedy. Okay, think about it. If you're a developer, not just a developer, 30% to buy the software, but if you're a video streaming company, an app, a music streaming company, I have a subscription for 10 years to an health app. Pay you 30%. What are you, Apple? What were you actually doing for that 30%? Okay, you had some edge networking. You have servers that put, I don't know, 100 megabytes of code that you can download. You have a payment facility that's in there. For some apps, you even have to pay extra if you want to put the data on Apple servers. 30% across tens of billions of dollars in revenue. There's a reason, folks, that Apple never disclosed gross margins for the App Store. And that's because they were huge. And by the way, nothing wrong with making money, but at some point, you have to align value with your pricing. Otherwise, you're going to get into a mess like you got in here. Apple, I hope you learn a lesson here. US regulators, you're wasting time on Amazon buying a vacuum cleaner company. And I know you've opened up, a ton of investigations on this, but you need to bring this to the US, and you need to also stop these smaller walls, like charging, 10% for me buying something if I'm using an Apple browser.
All right, so because I want to move quick because we still got another topic, and I got to call at the top of the hour. Sorry, everybody.
Got 12 minutes, Dan.
Hang on all day. This is a good one though. So first and foremost, I think you covered a lot of the specifics of it, Pat. Here's the reason I don't think it's bigger news is because it's Europe. All right, I'm just going to pause there. I mean, Europe is the ultimate tax for any technology company. And by the way, when it comes to things like privacy and security, they tend to be more on the right side of what I think and where I think we need to be going. Having said that, they're also notorious for just loving to tax companies for innovation. And so there's always a grain of salt taken when the first fines come down from Europe. I mean, look, Apple plays dirty. It's always played dirty, but it has great technology that people like to use. And for the average user, they don't really care. I don't think most users, I think this is one of those things where you have to separate the consumer harm and the competition harm. From a consumer standpoint, I don't think most users care about having more marketplaces. I just don't. From a innovation and from a competition standpoint, it's problematic. And Apple, like you said, I think you put it really well, Pat, very, very greedy. I think along the way, had they been a little less greedy, and they probably could have kept the monopoly.
I know.
Because they could have said, look, yeah, I get it, but we're only charging 18%, not 30%.
Well, they threw out some bones to smaller developers, and we now know based on the disclosure between Google and Apple, they cut special deals with some of the bigger companies, but not with others.
Yeah. So, the bottom line is, it's weird because like here in the US, and I know it's a different case, but like the Epic Apple thing fell on its face. I don't think the US, I hear what you're saying, like, let's bring it here. I don't think Lina Khan has the gall to take it on. I think she's batting zero. So she's spending all her time trying to figure out any case she might be able to win, which, now she's shutting down the Roomba. Oh God, I'm going to need I can't get my vacuum from Amazon. But the bottom line, Pat, is what's going on here is really complicated. I mean, you've got multiple ecosystems. If you actually read through this thing, I just feel like this is Apple's just going to find new ways. Because there's no way they're just going to walk away from all this revenue. They're going to find new ways to pay. You were talking about kind of the smaller walls and the smaller fees. And, it looks like there's just finding new ends to charge rather than this kind of very blunt, big fee that they charge all the developers and all these different transaction costs. They're going to find new ways. Because there's no way they're going to just let this revenue run away. Having said that, Pat, I think it's a good start. I think it's good to see somebody had the guts to take them on and win. And then the other thing, Pat, is if they don't do enough, there's a lot of risk out there for them. They could have to pay up to like 10% of their annual turnover, potentially, if the EU EC says this is not enough, Pat. But this is good. Here's what I say about this. This story ain't over. This is not over yet. This is going to be a continued story. But until the U.S. actually takes meaningful action, I think it's always going to be a bit of a sideshow in Europe. And so let's see what happens, Pat. But it was a step in the right direction to finally make Apple at least have to, chew its own cud and swallow it. And you could see in that press release it came back out in a less than a desirable way. All right.
Hey, just to loop back. The EU has 448 million people. US has 300 and change, right? Like, I don't think it's a sideshow. It's a sideshow for B2B, but not a sideshow for B2C.
Okay. So here's where
or maybe I completely misunderstood your point.
No, you're right. What I guess I'm saying is that when Europe comes and slaps a big tech company down with a fine and makes them change something, everyone's like, yeah, that's kind of like they do that like 4 times a year. Yeah. And they make people pay. What I'm saying as a whole, wow, you got some
We got a
secret
lot
fan.
of fans today. We've got,
Secret fan. I love
but I
it.
don't even know who it is. We must not be connected. But yeah,
Secret
Matt
fan.
Hamblin, John Hedgewick, and Mohammed is a dedicated watcher. We appreciate you, Mohammed, coming in every single week. Thank you.
I'm not, you know what, Pat? I'm not downplaying it. I'm just saying Europe. It's like a merry-go-round. Google, Microsoft, Qualcomm. You know, it's just every year it's a merry-go-round of just hanging
They're
out.
they're very similar to China in that they do a lot of the taxation, but the difference is that China's very open about it, right? You know, we saw the documents on China with Qualcomm, and they're like, "You're charging too much. We need to charge this," and Qualcomm did, and everything was fine.